how to sell a probate house in Georgia without getting ripped off. Let's talk about that. When someone dies and a house goes through probate, there's something very interesting that happens. As soon as the court is petitioned for the letters of administration or the letters of testamentary, which gives the executor or the administrator the right to act on behalf of the estate, it becomes very public information. You can see who's the person who's petitioning the court, all of the heirs, their addresses, if there's a property involved, and sometimes they can go out on the internet and find phone numbers and email addresses and kind of attach all that data together. And so the administrator or the executor will start getting phone calls from investors or wholesalers. Maybe they'll even get mailers in the mail, or maybe somebody will come and knock on the door. And the reason why this happens is probate is public information. I can go online and see what's happening in any given probate case, or I can go down to the probate court and look at all the probate records. It's a public lawsuit, so everybody can see what's going on. I love investors when it is their time and place to come in and buy real estate. They can be great buyers, and there are some investors who may take advantage of this probate situation. And they do it because you, who may be going through probate right now, are at a vulnerable spot. You just buried your loved one, you're in the grieving process, and you're overwhelmed by all your loved one's treasures, because they may have a house full of treasures and you don't know what to do with all the treasures to get the house ready. You may be overwhelmed by maintaining the property and keeping it up, or you may have questions about whether or not you need to do repairs or not, and how are you going to sell this property so you can get this probate process done in a quickly manner. They know that you're in this spot, and they may try to get you to sell that house to them off market as an investor. The most common way I see probate sellers like you get ripped off is through wholesalers. Now let's talk about what wholesaling is, because it's completely legal, and the people who do wholesaling do not have to have the real estate license. So what a wholesaler does is they may approach a seller and they have a contract with you, an agreed upon price. Then they have permission to either make updates to the property, to make it more marketable, take it to the open market and find another buyer. Maybe they don't even make updates, but they find another buyer and they assign that buyer to the contract, and in the process of that, they make a nice chunk of money. So your agreement may be here with that wholesaler, and their agreement with the buyer that they're assigning is here. And here's this little chunk of money that you have lost the estate because you didn't know what wholesaling was. And again, nothing against my investor people, but sometimes wholesalers do not explain what's going on when they're trying to wholesale. And we've even had a closing attorney come in and tell us stories about where wholesalers tie up a piece of property for years trying to find that buyer, and that seller just can't get out of it because they're under contract. Now, the reason why these people do not have to have a real estate license to do this is they are part of the contract. We call it a party to the contract. Buyers and sellers are a party to the contract that is binding, whereas real estate agents are not. So that's how they can do this without having their license. So that's one of the areas that I want you to be cautious of if you're kind of thinking about going down this investor route. So let me give you a real life example that happened pretty recently. There was a house here in the greater Atlanta area that I had been talking to the lady who was the administrator, and this wholesaler approached her and said they were going to pay her around $150,000 for the house. They did not have to worry about getting the items out of the house. They agreed that they were not going to have real estate agents in this particular contract. And I think the reason behind that is a real estate agent would probably try to protect you as the seller if they read this contract, because the contract was so poorly written and in favor of the buyer. The contract also stated that they had permission to make any kind of repairs on the house, and that then they could take it to the open market to sell, and that the original seller, who's still on title title, mind you. Well, the estate's on title. Doesn't have a say in which real estate agent this buyer chooses or how this buyer goes about marketing the estate. She let me read the contract and I said, this is not in your favor. This is not in your best interest. And if we slow down and just take the time that it takes to get the items out of the house, we can take this on the open market for a higher price. If they chose not to fix up anything in this house because it really had good bones, I could have probably taken it to the open market and sold it for around the mid 190s. So like maybe 195, 198, kind of in that area. Now, we did run numbers on what would it cost if they decided to replace the carpet and put fresh paint in the house and go out and shock the pool because the pool had not been taken care of. Would it be worth the effort to do those things? Could we get a higher price? And they chose to do that. They chose to fix it up to make it to where we had the most eyeballs possible, because certain loan products are not going to let you buy a house if the pool is kind of messed up. And we wanted to take it to the most eyeballs out there and, entertain offers from maybe first-time home buyers or veterans. And so they chose to do that, and we wound up selling it for $235,000. Now, if they had taken the $150,000, they would have left $85,000 on the table. I don't know about you, but $85,000 is not chump change and quite a bit amount of money. So that's a real life example that I help guide somebody through and help them avoid that wholesaler from taking advantage of their situation. Here's another area I want to caution you on. Investors are going to reach out to you directly. Like I said before in this video, they're going to reach out via telephone call. They're going to reach out, maybe they text, maybe they knock on your door, maybe they send mailers, and they may ask you to show them the property to see if the condition of the property is good for them to buy as an investment. And I really want to caution you on this, because you don't know who that person is on the other side of that transaction. You don't know if that person, and I'm certainly not here to fear monger, but you don't know if that person is scoping out the house to maybe steal some of the treasures. Maybe you haven't gotten rid of all the treasures yet, dispersed them to family members. Maybe you don't even have permission to do that yet. And, maybe there are valuables in the house and they're scoping it out to see what the valuables are. If you're going to meet with a real estate agent, well, we have to have a background check. We have a license. It's regulated by the state of Georgia. And if you're concerned about meeting a real estate agent, you could certainly go online and look up our real estate license or ask. I could easily send somebody over my real estate license so that they could see it. So meeting a real estate agent is one thing. Meeting an investor that you don't know from Adam is quite another. So I'd rather you to be safe than sorry. Now let's talk about the trade-offs between speed and price, because as I see it, you have 4 options when you're dealing with a probate house in Georgia. Your number 1 option is to keep it. You and your heirs could totally keep it. You could turn it into an investment property and get cash flow out of it if that's something that makes sense. Maybe it's a good rental property and good investment property. You could have a family member buy it from you and they move in. So you could kind of keep it in the family, that sort of thing, and not sell it at all. You could sell it off market, and that's could be feasible. It's a quick way to get rid of the house. If you don't have money on your side or time on your side, it might be a good way to go. I will say though, if you're wanting to do that, at least get a real estate agent, particularly one who specializes in probate like I do, to help you through that process. Because even if you're selling it off market, you're not going to know all the terms and the ins and outs, and do you have everything set up correctly, EIN number, the bank account, all those things to where you can disperse the money if you sell it. And it's an easy button. You're gonna leave money on the table going that route. I almost guarantee it. The third option would be to take it to the open market and sell it as is. Try to get the most amount of eyeballs on it. You may not, depending on the condition of the house, be able to entertain a first-time home buyer or a veteran because of those loan products, but you may be able to entertain like a conventional loan, somebody who loves a good DIY project, or you may attract some investors, but at least you have that real estate agent on your side guiding you through that process. And when you take it to the open market, the likelihood of you getting more money for that home is significantly higher. Your fourth option is, if you have money and a little bit of time, is to fix it up before you present it to the open market, because that even opens up your buyers even more. You can entertain those first-time home buyers, veterans, those loan products that those people use, and have more eyeballs, thus even getting you more money. So those are your four options. You need a good real estate agent who understands probate to help you weigh those options. If you hired me, I could easily go out and do an asset performance test to tell you if it would be a viable rental property, so you could know cap rate and cash flow. I could take it to some of the investors that I have. I have investors call me all the time. They're in my database. If I had a situation where maybe you don't have the money, maybe you have a mobility issue and you don't have the time or the energy to clean all that stuff out, maybe you live out of state and selling it off market is just the way you feel like you need to go, that's fine. Let me help you get some investors. Let me help you make sure those investors are not taking advantage of your situation. And then we can also weigh out the options if you decide to take it to open market as is versus fixing it up. And we could actually put numbers down so you can make the best decision based on your situation. Also, let me state that price isn't everything. Sometimes you may choose to take a lower price so long as the terms of the contract are either in your favor or are at least what we would consider standard terms. And you're not probably going to know what standard terms are like a good probate real estate agent does, because we're off out here negotiating contracts day in and day out, and we kind of know what good terms are. I'll give you an example of this. Some people oftentimes say that cash is king, and it is, because there's less hurdles to jump through with cash. There's no appraisal hurdle that you have to jump over. Oftentimes people who are buying in cash, they may not ask for a bunch of repairs. They may not, particularly if you're selling it as is. They're not going to ask for repairs, and they can close roughly within 2 weeks. So you may take a little bit lower price in cash because you don't have to jump over those hurdles. But how are you going to know if the terms are in your favor or their favor? That's where I want to caution you. If you're trying to deal with an investor all by yourself, you might not know. Reach out to me if you don't have somebody in your part of Georgia who can help you out with this. I can hook you up with somebody. I service the greater Atlanta area, but if you're in another area, let me know. I'll find a probate agent for you that can help guide you to make sure you're not being taken advantage of. Let's talk about some red flags that you may be taken advantage of. Number one, someone pressuring you to sign the contract now. That's one thing you'll find with me and my husband is we do want to help you, but we're not going to pressure you. If you need time to think, if you need time to take a breath. That's just not who we are. So don't let an investor pressure you to sign now, or we got to get this done quickly. Take time to think it through and not make a rash decision. Another red flag might be telling you that the house is worth far less than what it really is. And how are you really going to know what it is if you don't have a professional real estate agent that is going to go out and look at what's happening at the market and kind of come in and tell you what market value is? Also, they may be pressuring you to sign before you have permission to sign. So when you go through the probate process, you absolutely have to have your letters of administration. You've had to take your oath, or your letters of testamentary if there was a will. Same thing. You still have to have your oath. And if you don't have that yet and they're trying to get you to sign a contract, it's technically not binding. Now, sometimes I will have people sign listing agreements, but I will say it's up on the probate court. Like, we have to have probate court approval before we can proceed with listing agreement. But it's just something to kind of get us started so that I'm on your side, and that when you start getting all those investment calls, guess who you can give them to? You can give them to me. I'm happy to talk to any investor all day long and kind of make certain that you don't have to deal with all that stress of talking with the investors. Last but not least, one of the things I see from the beginning, from the get-go, before you even kind of get those letters of administration or letters of testamentary, is not securing the property. Like, one of the first things I would do is go in and change all the locks, because you don't know who has keys. Neighbors could have keys, friends could have keys, family members could have keys. If the person was being taken care of by an in-home care person, that person might have keys. And where at the time it might have been great when that person was alive for these people to have keys, when people pass away, sometimes money reveals who some of these people are, and they may take things that they shouldn't, because you don't have permission yet to disperse of the treasures. So I would make certain that the property was secure. We also had an attorney tell us that if you put no trespassing signs in the front or back of the house and somebody is caught trespassing and the law arrests them, that holds more teeth in the law than not having one. So you may just want to put some no trespassing signs on the house. Has to be in the front and the back so it's visible for where people come in and out. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, maybe you can put it up close somewhere to, at least if somebody's standing at the door, they can see it, but not from the street. There's nothing worse than screaming, oh, this is a vacant house, right? You don't want to do that. I have seen heirs come in and board up windows. Now, I haven't seen many heirs do this, but if you wanted to be super cautious because maybe the house is not in a great part of town, that is something that you could do so that people couldn't do that. And this particular lady did it because she had heirs who wanted to live in it, and she knew if they got in that they would try to get the utilities back on and not leave. The good news in Georgia though is squatter laws. They passed legislation around that. So if you find yourself in a squatter situation, easily go to your local county, hire a law enforcement person to go in and get those squatters out. Now I'm going to talk about why you should seek out a real estate agent who has specialized in probate. Most agents can help anybody buy or sell a house. What our industry doesn't do for us is teach us probate. If we're going to learn about probate, we have to be proactive to go out and seek classes that teach us about probate. We have to kind of understand our own state's probate, because each state is different, and how you do probate in Georgia is not how you do probate in California. So having an agent really understand kind of what's going on in the state that you're in is key, and they're going to know the process, where a good attorney is going to help you with the law, right? They're going to get in there and they're going to do the right petitioning, and if there's arguments amongst family members, they're going to guide you through that. Real estate agent doesn't get paid until they close on the house, so oftentimes I have to give direction. I'm not a lawyer, but direction on the probate process, where we are, whereas if you got that direction or ask 50 gazillion questions of an attorney, they may charge you hourly for that. If it's a question that I can't simply answer by pointing to something on the internet or giving you some kind of little timeline or guidance, I'm always going to tell you to go back to your attorney, because again, I'm not an attorney. They're also going to know whether or not you have permission for the leave to sell, and how to market a house if you don't have permission to sell the house, that you have to actually petition the court to do so. They're going to understand that you need an EIN number and a bank account, and that all the proceeds from the sale of the house or of the personal treasures must go into that bank account. And then, probate isn't over just after you sell all of the tangible assets, like the house and the personal items. You still have to pay creditors off, and you still have to go in and finally close out the probate so that it's done, and file tax returns. And most real estate agents don't know that process, or they don't even know what a date upon death appraisal is, which is part of the tax codes and stuff. Like, you get what's called step-up invasive. So the value of the home when someone dies is what you kind of inherit, and they're not going to be talking to you about capital gains, because the longer you hold on to a home, if there's appreciation in the market, there might be some capital gains, but they're not going to know how to guide you on that and point you in a direction of a CPA, because number one, capital gains doesn't affect their compensation. And number two, we're just not taught it. We have to go out and seek that additional information. That's what's great about real estate. We can be really entrepreneurial and learn different avenues to help people out in real estate and really become niche. So again, I serve the greater Atlanta area. If you need somebody in other parts of Georgia, let me know. I can help you find a good probate agent in your neck of the woods. So I know you're going through a difficult time and you may absolutely feel overwhelmed. And I'm also sorry that you're having to go through this, because being an administrator and executor is not for the faint of heart. So I congratulate you on your courage for stepping out and trying to help, dissolve the estate that you and your heirs have inherited. So if you do need help, please reach out. Our contact information is below. And if this subject, if you really love it, maybe you can watch the next video here in line, because we've got lots of different aspects of the probate process here on this YouTube channel. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.